Greetings from Snake Mountain Boatworks on Thursday, November 27, 2019. Happy Thanksgiving to one and all. Here's an update on our 1958 16-foot Penn Yan Sealiner preservation project. Since we last updated this project, her bottom paint's been finished. We have all but the final several coats of Interlux premium yacht enamel semi-gloss white topside paint to apply. Her transom has been stained with wood coat gel stain, and Joe, Anthony, and RJ at various times have taken turns, but this has been primarily Joe's project, repairing design flaws that we encounter at the aft deck corners where the transom, the topside planks, and the rub rail meet. In this case, on both sides, the rub rails were completely rotted from about here back. Joe is not finished yet, but he has fabricated and roughed in, still final sanding to be done, a section of rub rail on the starboard side. There is an additional section on port. And again, all of this needs to be sanded in. But then we encountered, well, let's look at this side, the port side. This same problem was visited upon us and the sealiner on both corners. When we observed the photographs of her upon delivery, we noticed there was a very large gap here, and on the other side there was a gap here. Neither rub rail reached the aft edge of the transom. And remember, we put a new transom on this boat, but it is precisely the same thickness. But the real issue that baffled us for the longest time until Joe came up with a solution was that the deck planks and the transom on both sides met hard right here and with a gap of almost 3/16 here. So while he's not finished the final sanding in, and we'll fill these little tiny gaps with TotalBoat Thixo Wood, Joe's solution was first, because this was both short and rotted, to do a Dutchman repair here. But then, and this, you can imagine how long this took, Joe fabricated a wedge in mahogany that just closed this space. He's sanded it in most of the way. There's a bit more to go. It will disappear once we have stained it. Remember, the transom is stained a mahogany, a true classic mahogany. The decks will be stained essentially natural. They'll be a bit lighter. We can see that we encountered the same issue on starboard, and the wedge Dutchman has been fabricated and applied. It extends all the way to this needle right here. So once we have this all sanded in and properly stained, this will all disappear. But I should caution folks considering purchasing one of these larger Penn Yan runabouts. Check the aft corners. We've encountered this. We've never encountered this wedge issue before, but we've encountered the corner issue on almost every Penn Yan that we have preserved. Next, after completing the varnishing of the interior hull sides and the bilge, and remember that this boat was offered with floor panels running between the stringers. That would be a panel running on either side of the central stringer. The challenge we faced next was dealing with the deck plank seams. Now you remember, these boats, whether they're Chris Crafts or you name it, they appear to be a board every, well, 1 3/4 inches or so. But in fact, the actual boards are in this boat. Here's a good example. Let me get around to right here. Pull in as far as I can. You see that this is an individual board that comprises 3 apparent bow planks. The next individual board runs right here. Again, 1, 2, 3, and the next one right here. These joints between the actual planks tend to be, in most boats, shiplap joints. So when we fill seams, we just tend to discover that this seam will be wider than the seams on either side of it. Same here, you can see that this seam at a plank edge was wider than those on either side of it. But as is way too common, these seams tend to get filled with all sorts of gobbledygook, gooey, hard, you name it, blue, green, red, sometimes even white stuff. And for years, we have cleaned out, and you can find videos on our channel, particularly videos where RJ is using a reefing hook and paint remover to soften this material and then attempt to, with the reefing hook, draw it out. Well, the problem with that is, of course, particularly in very small seams like these are much smaller than the others, the reefing hook has a damnable tendency to jump the channel and to come out and make a scratch. And then we have to play hell to hide the scratch. So I was rooting around on Amazon.com one day trying to find a better solution, and happily I can report that we have. Now, I don't know about you, but my image of Dremel tools is that, well, they're for craftspeople, they're kind of a toy, yeah, they don't have much torque, it's hard to control them, they got these goofy little drum sanding kind of attachments. The whole thing feels to me, has always felt to me like it's Rube Goldberg. Until, as I was flipping through, I found the Dremel Trio online at Amazon. It is a fantastic mini router. Unlike the basic Dremel, which is, I agree, is a toy, this is a tool for a woodworker. This is a tool for a boat preserver. You'll find so many uses. It drives these cutters. You can adjust the depth, you can adjust the angle, and you can adjust the speed. And what we now do is work with, it takes two people. We work with two people. We typically take our sections of festool track from our track saw system, and we'll lay the track right along the side of the Dremel, clamp it on one end if possible. If not, then we end up with three people involved sometimes, although unless the surface is as convex as this one is, let's say up there, the track really proves that it's metal. One person can hold it down and the other end doesn't jump. And then we use the router to clean these seams out all at once. Now, in the process, we end up with seams that are all the same width, the same depth, and absolutely straight. In some cases, let me get right here. See if I can pick this up. I'm hoping you can see that right here we have applied a bit of TotalBoat Thixo Wood to the further edge of this seam. This seam had been, I don't know if it was because the windshield's in this area or what, but for some reason this edge was all chewed up. And the only way we could have cleaned that edge without adding something to it would be to make this seam probably 20% wider than anything in its neighborhood. So we paid Thixo Wood here, and now it has set. I can tell by feeling it. So on Friday, when the shop is open again and we're back to work, Joe will go through with either me or RJ holding the straight edge, and we'll be able to just, with the router, with the Dremel Trio, we'll be able to clean this up and have a nice knife edge as we have with all the others. So that's where we are on Thanksgiving Day 2019. Snowing outside. I guess it should snow Thanksgiving Day. And the parade in New York on its way, maybe over by now, I don't know. And we'll be back to you with further updates on the 1958 16-foot Penn Yan Sealiner. Thank you so much. Bye-bye for now from Snake Mountain Boatworks.